What is up, everybody, and welcome to League Unlocked. My name's Eric, hanging out with you guys today, and it's about that time of year again to begin our global power rankings. We're calling this week one. You can't really have one solid week because all these major regions are playing on different weeks, either one or two, but we're calling this one week one, and it gets a little bit complicated, as you'll see, doing these top 10s, at least for the global ones, because a lot of teams haven't played that many games, so it's a little bit hard to actually judge how strong of a team they are right now, which is why a lot of the teams on this list, as you will see in the bottom 5, we're still kind of including the end of spring split / their MSI run. It's still being incorporated because if you based it purely on summer, these squads would not be on this list. But without further ado, 10-6 on week one of those global power rankings. And of course, you immediately see those teams that I was just talking about in 3 of the final 4 teams at MSI, IG, Liquid, and SKT. And Invictus, who were the favorites for MSI, obviously won the LPL Spring. Towards the end of that, you were talking about them as the best team in the world. But their first 3 series in summer have been very lackluster. Baolon hasn't played in any of the series. Still not much info in that regard why he hasn't been playing, whether it's for rest or performance issues, but either way, Lucas has been in the lineup, and they've gone 1-2, including this loss to V5, who were pretty much a consensus power ranking of bottom 2, maybe bottom 3 of the 16 teams in the LPL. So losing that, they also lost to LNG, who you saw on this list, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and really just wins you would have expected IG to win, and even that series that they did win against Dominus eSports, they were losing that for most of it and probably should have lost that one as well. So the only reason IG are in the top 10 is, again, their performance towards the end of spring and what they did at MSI, even though they fell to Liquid. That's one of the main reasons why you have Team Liquid above them, is we're still kind of including that best of series because TL hasn't looked that great in North America yet either, and neither has SKT. But again, they looked better at MSI, which is why we have them ahead of those two, because in the LCK as well, they have not looked very good. So they're in at number 8. Origen, listen, G2 won MSI. Origen put up a fantastic showing against them. They still had a great run at the end of spring, and mainly how competitive they were against G2 is one of the main reasons we have them this high up, and that's just kind of the rough nature of doing these week one global rankings, is you've only seen 2 games in summer from them, so there's not a ton to go off of because, of course, it is best of 1 in EU. You're not even getting series. LNG is a team that you're probably not that familiar with, but they got a 3-0 start in the LPL. They've been pretty dominant. They do have that win against IG, which, by the way, was super convincing. This is part Snake eSports. You have SVM and Flandre, as well as that new former Griffin trainee Plex in the mid lane, and they have looked really solid, expecting that this should be a playoff team so far. It looks like, and maybe 6 is a little bit high. It's hard to rank a solid win against IG. Usually would skyrocket you right up to that number 6 spot that they have had. But the LPL, the top half, is still completely stacked of really good teams. So I think it's fair to have them in at number 6 because they are playing best of series. So they're 3-0, but they've played a minimum 6 games at that point. So there's a lot more to go off of as opposed to literally 2 games that Origen has played. So that's why we've got them ahead. And we go into the top 5. I mean, that's 3 of your 4 MSI semifinalists that are already on this list and not in that top 5. There are a couple of other LCK squads, of course, Griffin and Kingzone. I think Kingzone clearly had the most dominant first week in the LCK. Griffin had some suspect games. They did eventually get back on track and to that level that we saw throughout 90% of the spring regular season, so they're in the top 5, but not hovering around that number 1 spot like they did pretty much every week in spring. Then we go to RNG, who had an underwhelming spring split, especially by their standards as the 2-time LPL champs in 2018, but they're starting to look more like that roster. We never really saw moments of that in the spring split, especially their playoff run came to an end pretty early on, but Xiaohu has looked so much better here in the summer split. Uzi and Ming continue to be that consistent force in the bottom lane. Karsa is the main win condition and key point for this squad. And the one change they made coming into summer was Lang X. Xiaowal from Suning changed his name, and he has been unleashed. He's been that consistent top laner that they desperately needed throughout spring. They were calling Zitai out of retirement to try and have some fix in that top lane. Amazing J did not work out, but Lang X so far has been working fantastically for them, and it's a 3-0 start for them. Again, they haven't played some of the top tier squads. They did take down WE, but they're looking really good in their wins, and they've only dropped one game in those 3 best ofs, which is one more than Fun Plus Phoenix, who you saw coming in that second spot. We know how dominant they were in spring, finishing first in that regular season, and they have just continued to dominate. You remember the 8-0 start in spring. Wouldn't be surprised if we see that again here. Like RNG, they haven't played the best competition yet, but I mean, they did take down Bilibili and JD Gaming, who took them out in the semifinals of those spring playoffs. They definitely got their revenge, and these guys are completely just mauling, demolishing, destroying any of the competition lined up for them. You got mid lane Nautilus and Renekton for Doin B completely popping off on that. It's the same roster from spring, and through these 3 best ofs, which again, they are 6-0, they're sporting a team KDA north of 3, which is absolutely insane. Griffin did not even get close to that during their dominant stretch in spring. Yes, it's only 3 best ofs, but Fun Plus coming in at number 2 because they have been so dominant to start off here in the summer split. And you combine that with how good they were in spring. Definitely deserving of number 2. But number 1, it's the best team in the world. It's the MSI champs. They've only played 2 games, have G2. But I mean, it was a dominant destruction of Splice, and then it was a win against Origen. They had to work a lot harder for it. But coming off of a 3-0 shellacking of Liquid in those MSI finals, they'd have to really have an 0-2 week for them to not be in this top spot. They've proven that they are the best team in the world, taking down SKT, demolishing Team Liquid. So G2 for the time being is going to be your unofficial World Championship belt holder and the best team in the world right now. That's right, it is from EU, but we'll be revisiting these global power rankings as the weeks progress on, and you'll start to see more mainstays as, you know, these teams play more games, specifically some of these Western squads who are only playing the best of 1. So things will get more fleshed out as the weeks come on. But for now, G2 hanging pretty in that top spot.